Welcome back, guys. We are here on another episode. We have a new guest, my boy Rayno Victor. He also does media ministry, and we're here to hear a little bit about his story. But before that, Rayno, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Rayno Victor, and if you forget my last name, I say I'm a victor, not a victim. And I think it's so important because we live in a day and age where like a lot of people want to make excuses about not doing certain things. And for me, as you see on my hat, it says Media Victor Pro. And so the acronym is MVP. And the reason why I chose it is because I want to use my gift of creating content, making images, making videos, to be able to make an impact and to help people make that transition from being a victim to become a victor in their lives. And so on a day-to-day basis, I'm currently, most of my work, I follow a motivational speaker. His name is Taurus Montgomery. He's also a pastor. And that's how I got into media development, media production, because I wanted to use my camera to help people. As you know, I get to record positive motivational speeches. I get to record a lot of impactful content like sermons that really change people's lives. You never know like how someone's going to be changed after listening to a positive message. So I'm really excited to work behind the scenes and create that kind of content because that's what the world needs, more positive content. So
Amen.
I'm really excited about that.
But and we want the viewers to be able to hear a little bit about your story and how you got to this place where you were able to merge ministry and media. Why is it that you came this far? How did you come this far? Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. So before I talk about media, I want to talk about me. How I got into ministry, I would say, is that I've always wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to help people. And so this is important because whatever you do, especially in like media development or if you're creating content, it will magnify what you're already doing. And so in my heart, I was already someone who was very passionate about serving and helping people because of my previous experience in life. And so when I come to media, I'm like, this is a way to have a platform to continue to do what I'm doing behind the scenes and just share with others. And as I mentioned earlier, like, so when I first met Taurus was a motivational speaker. He was selling books. He was going to juvenile detention centers. He was helping kids behind the scenes, didn't ask for no money, didn't tell anybody. And I literally came alongside him and just was recording him for free. And I think it's important because no matter what you're doing, right, you can be doing those things and not have a camera on you. And so all media does, it just magnifies whatever message you're already telling. And so when I say me, I'm thinking about me when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, my parents, they got divorced when I was very, very young. And it really impacted me in negative ways. I remember they separated. So my dad, we lived in South Florida, but then I ended up moving to Georgia with my mom. And when I was there, I just became a kid that was causing problems. I was damaging things in the house. I was yelling at my mom. I remember there was lots of interventions. But at the end of the day, it was listening to a sermon. It was going to a youth convocation, hearing a sermon about the story of Solomon, how Solomon prayed for wisdom. And one of the things that the pastor said during the program, he said, imagine Jesus, your friend, and all you have to do is invite him into your room, just how we're sitting down.
Wow.
Sit Jesus down and talk to him and tell him about your problems. And I literally did that as a kid. And that sermon impacted me from that moment. I gave my life to Christ. I prayed for wisdom. And one of the things that I pray for every single day is for wisdom. And as a result, like now, as I'm thinking about my journey, like me personally, that message, that sermon, that content, right? I don't know if I can go back and find that sermon now, but that sermon changed me. Like that's why I think it's so important. Like that as we think about like recording sermons, or if you're a preacher, or if you don't know how that one moment can change someone. And it may seem, maybe this guy, he's a pastor, he's doing his thing at a youth congress or federation or program. But at the end of the day, I remember like statistically, I'm thinking about the fact that my dad was in the home, the type of decisions I could have ended up making. My mom, actually, to give you more context, my mom, we were migrant workers. So she'd be gone for like a couple months, like getting contract work.
Wow.
And so my big sister, she'd be working, and then we kind of had to, run things when she was gone. And it was so important for us to be able to go to church, do what we were supposed to do, and really just trust like we were doing what we were supposed to do. And what only kept me accountable was like knowing that God was with me, and God is my father. And so what I said was, my dad's not here, God's my father, and I'm going to operate as a child of God. And that's when I took God seriously. I was like 8 years old, 9 years old. And this leads to me then taking God seriously, avoiding bad decisions. And then afterwards, of course, that's when I meet Taurus, and I'm following him, recording sermons, because of this passion. I know, like, as a little kid, that affected me, like recording sermons, recording speeches, like these things are extremely important. So you talked about how I mix media and ministry. I'm like this is just who I am. Like, I love helping people. I want to make an impact in this world. I want to leave a legacy using these videos. And though I may not be preaching in all of them, I may not be up front, but I think it's so important as we are creating content like this, talking to people, being in conversations with people. Like, you don't know who's on the other side of that video, who's listening, and they could be a little kid now, and you can help them avoid making some dumb decisions, you know, especially you don't know their context, you don't know their family, you don't know what's going on. But that's why I think I went down this path towards media and ministry, working behind the scenes with like speakers. So yeah.
We had a very similar experience, as a matter of fact. Like, the way that Anam and I kind of came to Christianity, I would say, like, I was born Christian, right? I had a falling out. That's on a whole nother podcast. But we came because a gentleman online was able to present the gospel very simply. And he was able to have a practical impact in our lives. But I don't know that I've ever mentioned this. I feel like media ministry is a means of creating footholds in the world for Christ to be able to get into these pockets. I mean, God is already everywhere, but what I'm trying to say is Satan has footholds. He has bases set up throughout the world in people's hearts. And as soon as they hear the word preached simply for a practical sense, it disrupts all of that. Because then people are like, oh, I don't need to come to this like club or this coping mechanism just so that I could find peace or some type of inner truth. I literally I do what I heard. This little seed over here said, find the community that's healthy, and it'll actually give me the real truth, real peace that I'm looking for. So when we do this through media, we still are creating that community, that outreach that many of us might not even have, because I know I didn't have it at some point. So I think it's kind of beautiful that your whole mission, your whole goal is to be able to outreach in this capacity.
That's so good, man. And that's crazy. So you guys heard a sermon online, and they talked about community and the importance of finding a healthy community. And then you took action on that. Is that what it was?
It was a slew of sermons. I'm not going to lie.
That's crazy.
And he was kind of more so like, he was a real theologian, I would say. And he kind of showed us, like, you're living in this world.
Yeah.
But there's a world that's better.
That's good.
And we didn't even know that. We were just kind of like floating, trying to figure things out. And
that's good.
We were doing everything that people were telling us to do, in regards to like business and school, but just nothing was adding up until this guy came along and was like, the one thing you needed is
spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
That's important. You know, as we think about preachers, I think there's like such a negative image about when we talk about Christ and the church. I think one of the things that I really appreciated about Jesus' ministry when he was going about, he was saying very profound things in a way that was very simple. Like I told you, I grew up as a migrant workers kid. So majority of my summers were spent working on a farm, all right, picking fruits and vegetables. And it's not fun, right? But the way Jesus spoke was, he was speaking to the common man using things that they were doing. So like one of the parables is about fishing. The other one is about the harvesters. You know, he's using these practical things to teach kingdom principles. And what I love about what he just mentioned as well, John, you just mentioned that you had a preacher that simply broke down that, look, this is important, this spiritual stuff. I know you're doing good in business, you're doing good here in school, but like, I'm going to teach you these kingdom principles in a way that's practical, that helps me out like in real life. And so I think, and you guys have heard Pastor Torres preach. That's what I really love about him. Like, he will preach a sermon using like basketball references. And I love that because like, you know, urban context, something like, you knowing your audience and using the type of, I don't know, contextualizing things in a way that they can understand it. And so like, that's why I think pastors and ministers, whatever it be, whoever's speaking, it's extremely important for us that as we're crafting these messages, as we're writing sermons, as we're thinking about how we're going to impact the youth, like figure out what they like, know what you like as well. Don't be fake. You know what I'm saying? Like, please don't be fake. But at the same time, like, know what kind of elements you can bring to the sermon to make the gospel more appealing, more interesting, because there's so many distractions in this world that's trying to get people to not focus on the spiritual stuff. Like, they just want you to focus on business, or they just want you to focus on school. But like, what's the most impactful thing to me, like I said, was me at a young age realizing the importance of having a relationship with God, bro. That's the most important relationship, because once I figured out that relationship with God, it made my relationship with everybody else better. Like, people saw an immediate change in me, bro. Like, I remember my mom looking at me scared, like she was really concerned. And I went from being the bad kid to being a kid who's like a leader in the community that's trying to help people, that wants to be a better person. And I'm like, you know, like people talk about the commandments, how they're split into two ways: duty to God and duty to man, right? And so what I'm saying is that spiritual life is so important, because like, if we don't, you're a minister, you're in ministry too, so you know that if we don't emphasize those spiritual stuff, like there is a high chance that people won't respect each other, you know, and they won't respect the community better, because that relationship with God is being tampered with. And I think that's the key. When I hear about, you know, you talk about focusing on the spiritual stuff and not just everything else, because it's everything. Like, your spiritual life encompasses everything, who you are and how you treat everyone else. So I think it's super important what you just said. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's super important.
So Anam just basically spoke on the fact that we had an experience at some point where we were kind of disconnected from the church, and the only thing we had to lean on was online church. And I think a lot of people find that more commonplace now, but then there's others who are like more concerned about that. It's not necessarily a means to replace an in-person community, but like when you're suffering from church hurt, or somebody kind of did you wrong and made you feel ostracized, or the community that you're in isn't just like it, what do? Do you just give up? And in our context, in our lives, we basically started to gravitate towards preachers in other states, really. And that just opened up the floor for a better relationship with God. And to be completely honest, I never even thought about this growing up. Like, Christianity online, like, what does that, I don't know, what's that look like? I don't think anyone like necessarily saw this coming, but at the same time, like, my dad was like recording on VHS and DVDs and helping people get these sermons. But now here we are, where we're able to congregate on an online community and heal. It's a lot to take in, but it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that the people out here, even on this channel, feel appreciated or even loved by some of the stuff we're putting out there, because this isn't actually like, I want to be very transparent. This isn't for clout. This is literally just because this is on our heart, and this is something we need to do because God has put it on us. Like, our purpose, our joy, our excitement, and I'm sure it is the same for you, Rayno, is to be able to build those communities. Because I myself was hurt with the church in some capacity, and I know many others who have been. And I know it's not God's fault, but at the end of the day, we still need community. So how do we find that?
Man, that's really good. I think when you talk about community, one thing that I love about the internet is that you can find your people on the internet. And like I said earlier, I think media is a magnification of who you are. And so what you're going to find is that if you're someone who's been church hurt, if you're someone you're just looking for a place to grow, you're looking for a place that you can call your home, your church home. It may not be in your physical location. It may be an online church. In fact, I think what I call it is, you know, in the Acts of the Apostles, there was like, they went house to house. That was one of the verses that
Home
talked
church.
about the small group type of ministry. And I think what we're seeing now is more of online digital platforms kind of supplementing that small house to house. Now it's literally virtually in your home, like virtually house to house. You know what I'm saying? And I think if you are a pastor and maybe you're in a small area, you know, there's a lot of churches that are in small towns and they feel like, oh, how can we make an impact? I would say the reverse. Like, you may be in a small town and you may not be able to find your people, and vice versa. You may have a church that feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. You can connect with other people who have the same mindset as you. You guys can do digital programs, challenges together. You guys can do so much because of the interconnection, because of the internet. And that has never, ever, ever happened in the history of mankind because of the internet. And I think it's amazing that your vibe can attract your tribe. You like that phrase that says, you know, you like that quote. No, I really love it because, like, if I'm looking for something, I'm going to find it. That's all I got to say. I don't have to say anymore. You guys get the point. That's the beautiful thing about the internet. And so if you have someone who has a heart for service, your heart for missions, you want to help people, you need to be on the internet. All right, please get on the internet. Talk about the type of things that you're interested in and things that you want to see change, not only for yourself, but for our church and for yourself. And then you end up creating a community that can be that change that you want to see in the world. And I think that's the key to building an online community for yourself or joining one that's already doing some of the things that you're looking for. So that's my suggestion to anyone, maybe church or looking for something online. I feel like there probably is something online, or you may have to create it. And either one is a solution to this world's problems, I think, in my personal opinion.
So I want to add to that because I've met a lot of people who are scared to. They're scared to start. They feel like they need all the nice equipment. They need the... I'm not going to lie. God blessed us in a way where I don't comprehend how we... Yeah. He was like, John's too stubborn. He's going to want a certain type of mic. I'm like, Lord... He was kind enough to meet me where I'm at. But the reality is, you don't need that. I think, in all honesty, there's people out there that really need you.
Yeah.
You, like, either in their groups or even as a leader. And so many people are fearful because they're like, well, I think I have the content, but I don't have the equipment. What are people going to think? Like, what if my audio looks or sounds this way? What if the video quality isn't up to par? And I'm like, bro, okay, so we had a little bit of a mishap. I'm not entirely sure what happened. I think our audio went out. So I wanted to get back on topic, and we're going to kind of talk about moments like this too, but to just try to transition back, you don't necessarily need all the high-end equipment and yada yada, because you know what? Sometimes it'll fail you. So I wanted to ask you, and because I know I've had this situation in my life, I was scared to start. I kind of briefly touched on that. Were you ever at a point where you were scared to start? How would you talk about that?
I'm laughing because I've had multiple moments in this techno journey where I was really contemplating quitting. People don't talk about the spiritual side of, you feel like you're being attacked. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm creating content that's going to help people, Lord. Why is Premiere Pro crashing on me? And I got to do this whole edit all over again. I spent the whole night on it. And then it's taking forever to export because my computer is like dirt slow, right? And so in those moments like we just had where we had a technical failure and the computer ran out of space, and we literally had to stop recording the podcast to figure out what was wrong. And I think it's so cool because like in those moments, your mess can become your message. Like, we're literally telling you this because this is a part of the process. So when I first started, I actually, confession, I was anti-technology because I think when you become more conscious and more woke, you see how technology can, like, you see only the bad side, right? But Holy Spirit convicted me, like, Rayno, you talk about impacting people. Rayno, you talk about helping people. You're doing all this stuff behind the scenes, right? Don't let the technology be the reason why you can't use this vehicle as a way to impact people, because I don't care how you get there as long as you help people. The point is transformation. And in this case, I'm using a transportation analogy. The point is transportation, right? If the point is to get from this side of town to this side of town, and it's more efficient to drive there versus walk there, why not drive? And you mad at cars. That's basically what God convicted me about. It's like, why are you mad at a vehicle of transformation? This is just like a vehicle of transportation. Don't be mad at the bus. Don't be mad at the plane. If it gets you there faster, like, this message is impacting you right now on whatever platform we're on, right? If it gets to the person faster, don't be mad about it. But in the process, just know, just like get on the sub wherever, you're gonna have some hiccups, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like technology, like I don't remember if we said this, if we got this on the recording or not, but I got a degree in photography, visual communications, and one of the things that really discouraged me as well was like I got to take 2 semesters of Photoshop, bro. Like, and it's complicated, all these buttons, all this different stuff. But when you go through those things, just know that it's normal. Don't get discouraged. Don't quit. Because the point is, at the end of this video, if we have any issues or with it, someone on the other side of this is going to be encouraged to know that it's okay to mess up.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for the computer to run out of space, because you're not going to be the first person that happens to. And you definitely won't be the last. Because I remember like I'm editing church content. Like I'm editing sermons. Like, Lord, why is this happening to me? Don't give up. Keep going. Stay encouraged. And know that this is a part of your work as a digital minister, in my opinion. So,
and it creates perseverance.
And it's true. And it's not for the weak. So you said it other words, perseverance. I'm saying, it builds an endurance. So for sure. Yeah. Because I love technology, but only when it works. And so you just gotta work with it when they want to act right. So,
so just to piggyback off of what Rayno was kind of mentioning, this stuff can be very disheartening. It could be very overwhelming. As a matter of fact, sometimes you could probably think, God must not be wanting me to put content out there because clearly everything in the world is going wrong. And that has happened to us a handful of times where, like, when Anam and I were starting off, like, we got to a place where we were like, yo, let's just quit because everything is happening incorrectly. We're trying to record. We'll get like an hour and a half into a podcast, high five each other to then just find out the audio wasn't recording the whole time. And then you got a video footage and then another time, okay, we're recording and we thought we like learned our lesson, but now the video wasn't recording the whole time. And yes, that's like, there's negligence in that, but then there's also like spiritual warfare, because then you get in your head about, you shouldn't be doing this. This isn't for you. You shouldn't even try it again. You might as well just leave it to the side. And that's why I said it develops perseverance, because like, you're not going to go into the gym and think that you're about to squat 500 pounds. Like, that's just not how that works. You really need to be incremental in how you proceed with some of these things. And that's why in my opinion, I would never start off with like, don't go get a whole studio or $100,000 of products that you don't necessarily know how to use. Use what you're good at, because what you're good at will be the best weapon for you.
Absolutely. That's really good. And that segues, I think about the story in David. Bro, I love that story because of what you just said. So there's a part in the story of David and Goliath. I'm not going to assume you guys know the story. We're going to start where Saul is supposed to fight Goliath. I know this because Saul is the tallest one in Israel, right? And so the weapons that Saul gives to David, little boy David, he gives him the ginormous sword and some armor and says, hey, you're going to go fight the giant. And something I'm supposed to wear, first of all. And he ain't even using it. That's a sermon illustration all by itself. They giving you stuff that they not even using. All right? Yo. But the point is this. When it comes to content creation, you have to attack it with things that you're familiar with. And in the story of David and Goliath, we know that David was very, very good at using the sling and the stone. And he had been practicing on that, using the bear and the lion, right? And I think that just like before he fought Goliath, if you want to make a big impact in the world, you want to make a big impact online, start with the small things that you know how to do. Like David was a beast with that little stone and that sling. And he felt super confident. So by the time those smaller challenges came, he was already consistently using something, a tool that he was familiar with. And if you go on YouTube and you start learning about content creation, it's so easy to see these guys who have these crazy setups and they're giving you things that you really cannot use. Like it's useless to you because of not only the size of who you are in terms of your channel, but like the practicality. You may have a whole nother life. This may be a thing you do on the side. Like they're doing this full time with a whole crew of people and you may not be able to have that manpower. And that's why I thought about Saul, because like Saul was literally giving this man stuff that he wasn't really even using on this particular battle. And so I'd say just go in your own armor and figure out what works for you. And that's why I said the cell phone strategy works. Use your cell phone. Like start with your cell phone. Figure out the apps you need. If you have a Mac or you have a small computer, figure it out and use it the best to your ability, because that's the key to getting started and being consistent. Because how to win online is consistency. It's better than any camera you can buy, better than any audio system you can buy. Consistency. And if you're consistent, even with your iPhone, you can do a lot of damage for good in the kingdom of God. And I love that.
Amen. I want to add, at a very young age, I think the reason I stalled for the majority part was I wanted like this $2,000 to $3,000 Nikon. And I'm like, I can't start till I get there. I'm like, bro, you ain't never getting there. At least me. Like, some other people could get there. But like, God made it very apparent to me, like, bro, use what you have.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, he helped me switch in and out of like 3 different cameras before I finally decided I'm just going to record on my iPhone. Literally, we're recording on an iPhone right now. And we have a Canon M50. We have a GoPro. We have so much other stuff. And God's like, that's just like you're procrastinating. Satan can get in your head and make you think that you need to do the most to be able to get to where God's leading you. But it's not even about you because it's not on your strength. So
That's good.
When you want to start, and if you feel that calling to start, I honestly think you should just pray about it and get straight to work.
Yeah.
And see where God will lead you with it, because like we've gotten so far and God has been incrementally pushing us further and further than we ever thought we were going to get to. And I still don't have that $3,000 Nikon. So,
and I like you guys' strategy too. When I see this podcast, you guys set up a posting schedule that's realistic for you, that's practical. And also you guys are working with what you have.
Yeah.
And so
Thank you.
And it's a good thing because I think we want to encourage more people who have a message, like people who have a story, or you want to start interviewing people. Or for me, I'm really working more behind the scenes. I help like preachers and organizations create content. But even my role, like I'm stepping in and creating a void where people aren't creating content. Like they hire my services, my company, Media Victor Pro, to come in and be the MVP in those services. So like, it's extremely important because like, no matter what you do, I even tell them like, bro, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to shoot you a video and I'm going to charge you a whole bunch of money. All right. We're not cheap. All right. Praise God. All right. But when I come in and make you an about us video or a promotional video or whatever it is you need for marketing on the back end, I'm like, are you guys posting consistently on social media? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, do you guys have a cell phone strategy in mind? Cause I'm like, bro, this cell phone, this iPhone is just as good as my camera. I pay like $3,000 for the camera. He talked about that. I got one of those cameras, and they're not cheap. All right, this is an expensive craft. All right, once you get into photography,
and it's beautiful. I wish I could afford it.
But the point is, you don't need it. That's the crazy part. Why do we feel like we need to spend $3,000 in order to get started on something that's completely for free? It makes no sense, but you said it. It's procrastination. God gave you a message. God gave you a story. God gave you an impact. And when you can go out into the world using social media, it's completely for free. We do not need it. I think it's limiting beliefs. Maybe we feel like we're not good enough. Maybe you have to question like, God, why am I fighting something that could help people? Why? And it's because you are in the way of what God is trying to do for someone else. Because you just said it. It's not even about us. If we really were thinking about ministry, like this is about serving the world. God has called us to be ministers. And if we just so happen to have a camera or we just so happen to have an iPhone, this is our way of leaving our legacy online. And so that's why I said, like, if you really are about helping people, you're going to find a way to get from point A to point B. Somehow, if you got to walk to get there, if you got to drive, you got to, get on a plane. But the point is, it's about helping people transform. And if that means I got to dumb down my setup because I want to complicate it or I won't need to keep this thing simple, then, that's what we have to do in order to get there. If we got to walk, we don't get there as long as we get there every single day and be consistent.
Amen. So we wanted to segue into what it is, like what are sacrifices when you are heading in this direction of like media ministry or media in any capacity, right? And I'll just give a tidbit of my story. So basically, I was fiending for a PS5 for the longest. And I had a PS4 Pro, and I had a terabyte, and I had mad controllers, and I had mad games. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to trade this. As soon as I saw the PS5 come out, I was like, all right, bet I don't even care about this thing anymore. Like, I'm going to sell it for dirt cheap, and I'm going to go get myself a PS5. And I sold it away for like 180 at the time. Bro, they still don't even cost 180 right now. Like, they're still like 300-400. But I gave it away thinking, you know what? I'm going to get a PS5, and I'll just bridge the gap. And then you couldn't get a PS5 for like 2 years because every single like you would have to go on StockX or eBay or whatever, and they were like $1,000.
Wow.
They were really, really hard to get. And like, fast forward 2 years, one day I'm at a Target, and I'm like, yo, you guys don't happen to have PS5s, right? And I just asked out of the whim, and they're like, we have one in the back. And I was like, wait, what? I've never heard anyone say yes ever. Like, I've asked in different places, and I even stopped fiending for it for such a long time, because I was like, you know what? It's just not in the cards. And now they're a little more accessible. But back then, they were like, yeah, we got one in the back. We're not supposed to tell anybody. We're not supposed to put it on display. People fight over these things. And I'm like, oh, yo. She was like, do you want it? Because I can go get it. And I looked at a knob, and she's like, bro, you better not. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. And she was very kind to me. But I came home that night with the PS5. I was super excited.
Yeah.
And the Lord actually let me have it for some time. I actually felt like that was a miracle, because I was like, there's no way. Like, we happened to stop by in Target. We weren't even going to stop there. So I was like, you know what? This is definitely God. And you know what I wound up realizing? It was God allowing me to let it go so that I could move on to better things. I just didn't see it at the moment. But for about 2 to 3 months, I don't know how. I think because we got it near Black Friday, there was some crazy return. I had it for 3 months, and it was just sitting there. And it was literally just collecting dust, because I was so absorbed in school and marriage, and I kept on talking to God about like ministry. Like, Lord, when are we going to start this podcast, blah, blah, blah. And he kept on convicting me gradually, like slow nudges or easy nudges. You're going to give up the PS5. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That sounds crazy. I literally just got it. I've been dying for this. And mind you, I've been playing Call of Duty or COD since I was like 9.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got really good at it. And I was like, I'm not about to stop now. And on top of that, that became a lot of my identity, doing this thing over and over. And it got to this point where he was like, we had this whole back and forth conversation thing. And it got to this point where I kind of was like, you know what? If the podcast equipment comes out to the same amount of money as the PS5, I'll return the PS5 to do the ministry.
Oh, that's cool.
And I kid you not, it was the same exact amount. Everything we needed was the exact same price.
Are you serious?
Yeah, give or take $1. Literally just $1 to swap out for the podcast equipment. And when I did the math, I was like, oh my goodness. And he still gave me time to kind of grieve it. And I was frustrated because I was giving up something that I thought meant the world to me. And now here we are. So that was just the starting of the sacrifice for us, or for me, to be able to enter this zone.
Gotcha.
Now I don't even think about it. I'm like, bro, thank you, God, for this, because I thought that was my whole world, my identity, and my purpose in life. It wasn't. This was.
That's so crazy. So pretty much the money from the PS5 was the seed in order to start this podcast. Man, look, that is really inspiring, bro.
It was a lot. I know some people that were like, you gave away your PS5? You must be a saint. I'm like, yeah, for sure.
It is hard. He's like dreaming, cried about the PS5.
Yo, bro, I was so broken up. But I wanted to hear.
That's fair.
What you endured or have had to sacrifice, or different, talk to that.
Got you. So for sure, as I said earlier, I think when I first started in media, I wasn't really like a tech guy. Like, when I consider my identity, who I was just like somebody who just wanted to help. I wanted to make an impact. I knew for sure I was a missionary. That was kind of my thinking. So when I came to Benton Harbor, Michigan, I was serving at Harbor of Hope, and they had a program called the Year of Dedication. And so in that year, I sacrificed a whole year before I went to college, right after high school, in order to help the church. I was involved in various capacities, doing Bible studies. I was out in the community whenever Pastor Torres would preach and do like youth federations and convocations. A problem kept coming up. He needed somebody to help him record video. And that happened literally over the span of that year. And of course, they got an old Canon camera at the church. And you just talked about sacrifice. I think I sacrificed that whole year getting on YouTube videos, slaving away, just trying to figure out how to make it all make sense. Because when I first started, like, I was just combing through, like, in my mind, like hours and hours of YouTube videos, and then learning this stuff. Initially, it was really, really hard because it's very time consuming. But that's the thing. I think that's a part of the sacrifice. And I have a phrase when I say sacrifice creates paradise. Ooh. And so there's someone, because of the sacrifice that you're making, that will be blessed by the videos that I ended up creating. Like there's literally like we've raised. I remember I created a video for Taurus. He went to it was the NAD version of Shark Tank, which is like our church, our specific church, the Adventist Church. We have fundraisers for different ministries. And because of the video that I created, our church got $20,000, bro. And what's so funny about it is like that video did not take that long to make. Like because I had spent a year, and then after that I went and got a photography degree. Like I said, I got a visual communication degree, and I spent years and years behind the scenes just slaving away at this craft. So to make it more practical for the people watching, like in order to start something great, in order to get to paradise, sometimes you got to sacrifice. Right? In this case, John, he sacrificed the PS5.
My life.
I sacrificed a whole year doing mission work. But here's the key. I think if you know your why, when I think of a why, there's a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And he talks about all the different like big organizations and brands that really make an impact in this world. And it's the people who have a strong mission, AKA a why. And so when I was a missionary, in my mind, I'm like, my goal is to help people, right? It just so happens that I have a camera. I'm a missionary with a camera. My mission, my why is to help people. And if my mission is to help people, and this is the most effective way, the most leverageable way to do it, I have to learn how to create these videos. I have to learn how to take these pictures, because this is what, at that time, that's what the ministry needed. But I think in general, I think if you're serious about helping people and your why is to help people, your mission is to help people, like, why are you procrastinating? Why are you saying these things that are actually stopping you from carrying out your mission that you feel God has called you to do? If you really feel like God has called you to be a missionary in this sense, and this is your mission and this is your why, then this is just the how to get through it. And sometimes it involves a lot of sacrifice, a lot of late nights. You may have to stay up all night watching something to learn something, troubleshooting. And that's what comes, or maybe it's money. Maybe you got to sacrifice some money. You may have to invest some time. You may have to get into a coaching program. I don't know what you're trying to do with your life, but just know that when it comes to media development, sometimes you have to sacrifice in areas that other people won't in order to get the results that other people can't have. And that's what helps you with getting consistently online. So
one thing I wanted to add, that you had mentioned at some other point, hobbies. So you mentioned hobbies. I remember moments where like legit, I would go to sleep at like 6 a.m. This was when I was younger to some extent.
Dang, that's late.
Bro, we were playing Warzone, which is kind of
till 6 a.m.
Till 6 a.m.
That's good.
I had some loyal friends who were willing to stay out with me that late, even though they were dying and they had to go to work at 7. I think I had school at 8, so I don't even know. Yeah, anyways, my point is sacrificing even things like hobbies that aren't necessarily getting you, and it doesn't mean you have to take everything away. I'm not trying to push people to do things that feel uncomfortable, but kind of give 10% of your time to the thing that you're trying to do. Yeah, that's good. Experiment with it and gradually progress into 20 and 30 and then see where it leads you, because it might be more meaningful to you and purposeful than whatever it is that you're spending your time on. Because like coping mechanisms in this society now, it's so easy to get wrapped up in that. And one thing that really got me like started on this was I was at a Myers and I saw, and this is not a dig at Britney Spears, but I saw that she put out a book, and the first thing I thought of was like, I haven't seen her in so long. Like, how is it that she has a random book out? And the first thing that came to mind was, you could easily be putting out content, but you're a consumer instead of a producer. Wow. And God was like, I needed you to be a producer. I needed you to put things out there instead of taking in everything that everybody else is putting out there. Wow. And it made me feel like, you know what? You're right. Like, somebody told me the other day that sleep is a distraction for them. Like, in other words, get your 8 hours. That's not what I'm saying.
Please get some rest. Sleep is for the strong.
But what I am saying is, my friend was basically saying, like, sometimes, like, I'd rather sleep in than spend a couple extra moments with God trying to learn about my purpose and about my craft. And
Yeah.
And so like even getting up to get into what it is that will build out your future.
That's really good.
As opposed to just hitting snooze and not really doing much with your day. You, especially if you're younger, you have so much potential and you need to bank on that right now so that in the future you could make something of it.
That's really good. I was thinking about, as you said that, I'm thinking about The Power of Habits. There's a book by Charles Duhigg. And I think what you're talking about is a morning routine. Really, I say evening. In the Bible, the day starts in the evening. All right. So evening and the morning was first. I'm just saying this because if you don't go to bed in the evening, he talked about staying up till 6. Ain't no way you getting up in the morning and working on any sort of thing sort of to your purpose or your mission. Okay. Nope. Especially if it's something that's like taking you away from your ultimate mission. Like I said, say, okay, is whatever my activity is this an impact producing activity? Is this an income producing activity? These are questions I ask myself. And so one of the most important things I can do is go to bed, right? And if there's something I'm trying to work on, and I like how you said, the goal isn't to self-sacrifice in a sense, like we're not masochists, all right? I'm just a practical person. If I'm talking about spending X amount of time, let's say this video that you guys are producing right now for this podcast, let's say I know I time myself and it takes me an hour to edit this podcast together. Well, now I have to figure out how am I going to find time to actually edit this podcast? Okay, that means if I go to bed at 9:30, I'm in the bed, I get up at 5, I do my devotion, 6, I'm working on it. By 7, before I go to work or whatever I'm trying to do, it's done. Let's say hypothetically that's the scenario. Or I'm piecing time between lunch. But the thing is, like, you have to create a habit where you have dedicated time for whatever you're trying to do. He said 10%. It can be whatever percentage, but it needs to be like extremely practical, and you have to be almost like, you have to control your day. So if that means going to bed on time in the evenings, or if that means I'm getting up early in the mornings, listen, do what you got to do, but please get some rest. All right. That's what we're advocating here. But I think it's so important because if we don't control those time sucking activities, those parasitic, I call them parasitic because when we think about symbiotic relationships, right? There's some relationships where it's mutual, right? There's other relationships where it's, I'm benefiting from this. And there's other ones where they're like a parasite. Like this activity is sucking life out of my day, like sucking my time. Because if you don't make it a priority, and we talked about sacrifice a little bit, but if you do not really prioritize your day in a way that's setting you up for success, you can't expect to have, 52 pieces of content by the end of the year if you're trying to post once a week, or if it's even once a month, whatever you're trying to do. Like, consistency requires sacrifice and intentionality. Yeah. And so, like I said, I'm saying an hour. It may take a little more, but don't allow these activities that are not leaving any kind of legacy in this world for your family, for your community, to take space or time that should be allocated to something that can actually help people if you feel called to help people using media. That's my suggestion.
All right. So Rayno, I had a question. How would you get into that mindset?
Well, to get into the right mindset when it comes to media, I think because the barrier to get into media is so low now, anybody can do it with a cheap phone, with just the bare minimums. What prevents a lot of people from being successful, unfortunately, is really how they view themselves. And I call this personally the self-image. And so if you don't know, my name is Rayno Victor. My last name is Victor because I think the word victor is so important. Someone who wins, someone who overcomes. And that's how I see myself. But prior to that, I did not always see myself that way. Like, I had to learn what it means to be a victor, not just in name, but in practice. Right. And so for some of us, we may be struggling with, maybe you feel like you're not good enough. Maybe you don't look good enough. Or maybe you're struggling with, maybe like, oh, I don't have this testimony, or whatever it is. Like, my voice sounds weird, or whatever it is. Like, you have to look at yourself and remind yourself of who you are and whose you are, because this is spiritual warfare. We talked about the camera acting up, and we had an issue with the computer. Like, there'll be times where you'll be getting down and bad things will happen to you, and it's so easy to sneak into a victim mentality. It's so easy. It's so easy. Like, if we had an issue and we were sitting here complaining, oh, we're not good enough, this isn't God's will for me to make it. It's like, no, don't over spiritualize a victim mentality. That is straight from the enemy. We have to really control our mindset, because I'm thinking of my life. I worked on the farms for years and years and years. And I had a way about me that I was so humble, like that I didn't really like congratulate myself. Like, and it comes from my background. Like, we didn't celebrate birthdays. We didn't do Christmas. When it was wintertime and everybody else was going on vacation or summertime, we were working on the farms. And that really impacted me when I became an adult and people try to celebrate stuff. Like, it made me not value myself in celebrating life in those moments. And so I say, like, those small things add up, the things from your childhood, the things that you're struggling with. And so now when it comes to talk about my message on the computer or online or whatever it is, you're delivering your way of helping people online. Now it's time to help people and you're scared.
Wow.
Because you're really reflecting those negative things that happen in your childhood.
Wow.
And that's a real thing. I'm sure you've been through some stuff and you may say, though, like right now, who is talking? Is it the victim inside of me or is it the victor that's talking? And you really have to check yourself, because if you don't, that self-image of who I am, and it's ironic, I'm actually a photographer. I take pictures of people. And so when I think about a photographer's lens, let's say there's a lens cap on it, right? And it's blocked. Let's say the image is distorted or it's cracked or it's broken because of the device that I'm using, how I'm seeing, which is my paradigm or the way that I see myself, or the mirror that I'm seeing myself is distorted. And so you need to, again, it sounds crazy, but just know that how you see yourself will affect how you show up in the world and how you show up in your content, because the world is not a window, it's a mirror. How you see yourself will be reflected in the content, because people need to see a version of themselves online. That sometimes you have to create these things. And then we talked about fake it till you make it. We talked about, this was offset. We talked about fake it till you make it. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in the be, do, have model. I don't know if you've heard of this before.
No.
But be, do, have model, when I look at, this is actually in Genesis as well. So he says, be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth, and basically multiply yourself, right? So if you want to be faithful in multiplying a version of yourself, we're talking about procreation. But in this case, we're talking about there's a version of yourself. You have to be like in a state of, you just have to be. So if you say, if I'm a missionary and I'm a content creator, right? In order for me to have the results that I want, I have to be the person. Just be the person. So that means I have to be a victor. So I have to say to myself, okay, I'm acting like a victim. How do I be a victor? Well, I say I am a victor. First and foremost, I identify and I decide. It starts with deciding. Yeah. Being, that's why you call it a human being, not a human doer. So it's be. Then once you decide, it's the same analogy they use when people are like quitting smoking or something, right? They'll say, listen, first thing I change your identity. You can't say I'm giving up a smoking habit. You have to say I'm not a smoker. Because as soon as you say I am a victor, I am someone who's going to overcome this, no matter what happens, I'm not a smoker. I am someone who's doing this. I am a content creator. These things matter. So you say, okay, well, now that I'm a content creator, I'm going to start doing things that content creators do. Well, we're going to have a shooting schedule. We're going to figure out how we're going to do it. We're going to do it on the cell phone. We're going to do it on the camera. What are we going to do? And then as a result, then you have the results that you want. And so that's what I'm saying. Like it's extremely important to change your identity, because if you literally stop talking to yourself in a crazy way and you say, I am a victor, or whatever it is, I am a content creator, or whatever thing you're trying to start, it starts with being that thing, human being, not a human doer. Then as a result, you start doing the things that, like, for instance, there's somebody who says, I am an athlete. Well, what do athletes do? And then you start having the body that athletes have. I'm just giving some help in some other areas, because it's all about how you see yourself. And that's the first step when it comes to content creation. I would say, bro, just say I'm a content creator and put that out there. And then also say it to yourself in the morning, and then you start doing it. And then I promise you, it's going to change your life. Be, do, and have. That's my personal way that I see like that mindset shift to change in someone's life. So,
all right. So that was our conversation with Rayno Victor. So how can we find you, and where do we reach out to you if we wanted to know more?
Yeah, it's real simple. You can just look up anywhere, Rayno, Rayno Victor, and you should find me on most of the platforms, Facebook, Instagram. I got a TikTok too, guys. So follow me there. You'll see some snippets of things that I'm working on. Actually, I got a challenge that I'm doing right now for myself. I'm getting up early in the morning and I'm trying to write a sermon a day. And it's been pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. So as I said earlier, I work behind the scenes. I record a lot of sermons. And I think if you listen to a lot of sermons, you kind of learn the art of preaching accidentally by just recording a bunch of sermons and producing them. And so I'm challenging myself to create more content. And that's the way I'll do it, is by producing more spiritual / business / motivational stuff like that. And you'll see that on my channel once you go there. So it's going to be some entrepreneur stuff if you go in there, maybe some business stuff. But I promise you, when you go there, you're going to get content that's going to leave you better than we found you. That's the goal anyway. Create content that leaves people better than I found them. So that's my goal with my channel. So follow me, please. And that's my channel.
Stay in tune. Thank you for catching up with us this week. Peace.